it's really good. This is actually really, really good. It's not a beer that at 6%, it doesn't feel like it's 6%. It's kind of a beer that you would not want to... Oh, shit. Well, anyhow, I just got the giggles for no reason. It's pretty strong. Alright, sorry about that. So, yeah, it's pretty strong for me because I haven't actually done a lot of drinking in the past. So now, pretty much anything, and I'm like, whoo. Alright, so it's finally the weekend, and I am glad about that. So, remember I said last time I was going to do the beers. Now, the first one, if you don't remember, it was called something, I forget. I'll put the thing right here, the name of it. But anyhow, the second one is an IPA, and it's a little bit stronger. The first one was at 6%, and I got the giggles. I hope I won't do the same thing this time, but I can't promise that. And then the this one is 7%. So let's get this started, alright? I think the other one's called Destructor. This one here is called Hop Lava, obviously. So what type of... No, actually this time I'm going to go for this. It's a little bit more conservative than the mug. The mug, I think, is more or less for like guzzling down and drinking. Pretty, it's a sipping type thing, I think. This is a little bit different. So let's first smell it. They smell pretty much the same. I don't smell any sort of hops in this at all. It's Northwest IPA, obviously. 74 for the BU, so the bitterness is 75. I'm sorry, 75. 7% alcohol. So, let's see. It doesn't really say much of anything as far as what's in here. This glowing IPA is packed with copious amounts of Northwest hops. We balance the considerable hop flavor with a sturdy backbone of malty goodness. Alright, let's see. Here's the glass, and here this is. So, again... Let's make sure we pour this correctly so that we don't have any sort of, oops, sorry, any sort of major disturbance here. So as you can see, it's definitely darker than the other one. The other one was a pale ale. This one here has got a nice little golden red color to it. So there it is. As you can see, this one here also doesn't produce a tremendous amount of head. I mean, you see a partial one there where I poured it, but the rest, not so much. Definitely does, I mean, look at that. Oxygen bubbles coming up. Pretty strong. Nice little storm there. As far as seeing behind it, you can still see it. It's very clear, even though this is a darker beer than the other one. Not nearly as clear as the first one. So let's take a good sniff of this and see what it smells like now. Yeah, same thing. I really and truly can't... It doesn't smell like an IPA. Typically with IPAs you can smell all the hops. This is saying it has a lot of hops in it, but I can't really smell it. Let's taste it and see. Okay, that's pretty good. That's actually pretty good. Yeah, not too bad. As usual, I have to get on my daughter again. But, yeah, not too bad, actually. I can tell by tasting it, it's an IPA. As far as what types of hops are in it, I don't know. It seems like there's a lot going on with this. Definitely, again, I think there's some Cascades in it. Because, I mean, obviously, if it's brewed up here, that type of thing. It's got the flavor of typically Cascades. There's other stuff in it, obviously. As I mentioned last time, when you actually make beer, you're going to have your bitterness hops, and that's why this talks about the bitterness is 75 BU, which was more than the other one. It's just basically when you actually taste it, the bitterness of it, basically. How strong it actually tastes. A lot of times people And not to stereotype, but typically women don't like very heavily bittered beers. So a lot of times stouts and things like that, most of the time men will drink. There are women who definitely do drink those as well, but this type of beer, IPAs, typically have a very high bitterness as well. But also, with this particular beer, it just doesn't seem like it's one of those that like knocks you out. A lot of the IPAs will knock you out in general. Alright, my daughter had the giggles because Noelle was making her laugh. But anyway, so I'm going to go in and actually taste this a little bit more so that you can kind of get an idea of it. But basically, as I was saying, when you brew a beer, lost my concentration, when you brew a beer, you definitely want to make sure that you balance out flavor as well as the bitterness and the aroma. So when you're actually brewing it, you want to keep in mind what type of malts you're using, what type of yeast that you're using, because that can change the flavor of everything, and also hops. All those things can definitely change the flavor of a beer as well as the power of a beer. So let me actually go in again. I'm going to take a deep sip, and hopefully I won't get all giggly. Yeah. Oh boy. So, you know, the thing with me is that because I don't really drink all the time, you know, so when I have a very strong beer like that, the first thing that happens is that my mouth gets really moist, and then all the burps start coming, and then I'm like, yep, it hit me. So that's why, like last time, I just start laughing because I'm thinking that. Yep. So okay. Anyhow, would I recommend this beer? Yes, I would. I would actually recommend it. I think that oh boy, I don't know why it's so funny. I don't know why it's so funny to me, but I would recommend this beer. Is it a sipping type of beer? Absolutely. Is it something that you want to drink all the time? I could definitely see that. It's one of those types of beers that if you really want to pre-game, get the party started really early and fast and furious, this is definitely the type of beer you want. You want something that's really going to, you know, get you kind of tipsy quick. This would be the beer that you want. So overall, I definitely give this one also thumbs up as well. It deserves 2 thumbs up in my opinion, only because they did a perfectly good job of balancing out the hops. Again, with IPAs, typically one of the things that I definitely don't like is just that overpowering taste of hops. It's like I had a mouthful of hops. And you don't get that with this particular beer. Again, I'm not trying to advertise for anybody, but this was something that Noelle picked up. She picked up the other one as well. I have to say that this is actually a really good buy. I would definitely buy it again. Now, the downsides of it. To me, with this particular beer, I like to have a consistent amount of froth on the top, or what's considered to be head on a beer. Now, does it impact the taste or anything like that? No. But I want people to know that I'm actually drinking a good beer. Now, typically, one of the problems with a lot of craft beers is you don't really get that headspace. Some of them you do. I used to brew back in the day, and all of the beers that I produced had a tremendous amount of headspace. And of course, all of this is basically determined on how you actually, what sugars you add to it. So when you actually add, for those of you who don't know, when you actually add in the dry ingredients, that is basically producing sugars. When you actually go in, and depending upon if you bottle it or if you were to put it in a keg, for example, when you bottle it, you put in sugar. Believe it or not, it's not just regular house sugar. You can use that, but they also use what's called corn sugar. So you put that in, And when you bottle it, it basically gives you the bubbles, right? So you want that because that gives you something to, a lot, you know, you don't want a flat beer, for example. Now, when it comes to the overall, where was I? I just lost my train of thought on that. Anyhow, so to me, this is a really good beer. I think that there's a perfect balance, perfect blend. Headspace is really low. I was going with the sugars. The sugars determine the headspace. You see these bubbles here. If they come up really fast and dissipate, which is what happened, if you notice now, it's not as fast as it was. There's no storm there. And that's what happens, is that with some beers, depending upon what they used in the making of the beer, because when you actually make the wort, you add sugar to it. So you can use table sugar, which some people, there's a dispute out there. If you use table sugar, it's going to taste more citrusy. I haven't really found that to be true. Versus if you use corn sugar. Some people use brown sugar. Depending upon what type of batch you're making, definitely if you're using something like a chocolate stout or something like that, you can use brown sugar. You know, you can use honey in beer. So it depends on, there's many different types of sugars you can use. There's dextrose that you could put in there. So there's so many different things and elements that you can add to a beer that's going to determine the actual headspace that is on it. But that's really the only downside that I come with this particular beer. It's just the headspace. As far as the taste goes, it's actually really, really good. It's not something you want to slam just like the other one. You don't want to slam it. But I would have to say it's a really good party beer. I think it's a beer really for anyone. Woman, man, first-time drinker, that type of thing. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed this video as well as the other one. I try to keep it together, but I still ended up laughing anyway. And until next time, I'll see you. Take care.